Hi everyone, it's Laura here, and in today's video I'm going to share with you how I set up my Canvo Bullet Journal. The journal is part of a whole system of stamps, stencils and supplies that were thought for bullet journaling, and I have more details in another video here on my channel, so if you're interested make sure to check the link in the description box down below to watch that video as well. The first page is where you can write your name and also what time span this bullet journal will cover. I left that blank for now, but I'll fill it in later on. The first page in my bullet journal is my index, and here it's where I will log all the content in the bullet journal. The great thing about the Canvo notebook is that the pages are numbered already, so every time I have a new section, I can go back to my index, add the page number where that section starts and what that section basically is. In terms of decorating the page, I created the title by stamping the letters in the Funky Alphabet stamp set by Catherine Puller Designs with Midnight Black ink, and then I decorated the title with these swirly lines. These are also stamps in the Funky Alphabet set, and I stamped them with Lime Ricky and Aquatini inks by Catherine Puller Designs. This is how the page looks like once I started filling it in. As you can see, I have page number on the left, and then on the right I have the content of that page. I left also the second page blank because I want to have enough space for my index, and here is where I had a little bit of an accident because I dropped my ink pad directly on my page. The options were to tear off the page, but I didn't want to do this because the pages are numbered and I don't know, my heart just ached at the idea of doing that. I honestly wasn't sure how to fix it at this stage, and I also noticed that the stain was visible through the back of the page despite these pages being really thick, so I must have dropped it really well. So what I did is I went ahead and kept decorating the page according to plan. This page here is my cheat sheet, and I took this idea from Amanda Rach Lee. Basically what you want to do is to count how many grid squares you have on each direction, so in the vertical and horizontal direction on your notebook, and then you want to see how many you need to divide your sheet in halves, in thirds and in quarters. And you can go ahead as much as you want, but I think I stopped at quarters here. This will help you, for example, when you go ahead and you create your spreads, to know exactly how big your boxes need to be, depending on how many boxes you need on your page. I will say though that if you use the Canvo Bullet Journal and if you use the stencils, for example, this might not be so essential because those stencils are sized perfectly for your Canvo Bullet Journal pages, but I still think it's a nice resource to have just to look it up in case you want to do something customized. Also in this case, for the title of my page, I'm using the Funky Alphabet stamp set, and to draw my lines and to write how many squares those lines are long, I'm using my Stabilo fine liners in different colors. These pens are really inexpensive and super fun to use in bullet journals, and I will have a link to those in the description box as well. To fix that little accident, I decided to create a mask out of some repositionable packaging labels and to basically ink blend my Midnight ink by Catherine Puller on that portion of my sheet. You could also, for example, stamp an image and glue it directly onto your page to hide a mistake like this, or use a large sticker. But I thought that going with a bold ink blended circle like this one would match nicely the style of the stamp set that I used to create my title. I kept decorating the page and I stamped one of the images from the Bullet Journal Basic stamp set with Lime Ricky ink. I had tried to draw something with a white gel pen, but I didn't like it, so I blended my Midnight ink on top of that, and that's why you see that kind of a shadow on the blended circle. But what I did is I used the circle tracker and banner stencil to create some concentric circles, again with a white gel pen, and that's my cheat sheet page. The next page is the key, and I will tell you more about it in a minute, but the first thing that I did is to ink blend my midnight ink again, using that same circle mask that I used for the other side of this page, because I quite liked the result. I enjoyed this bold look, so I felt I would use the same solution to hide the mistake also on this page. I then stamped the word key, again with the funky alphabet stamp set, and then I drew a box with rounded corner, and I'm using another stencil by Catherine Puller Designs to help me draw in my box. The stencil is called On My List, and I am also using it to create a drop shadow on the left and lower portion of the box, as this will make it look like it's popping out of the page, and I'm introducing a little bit more of that bold black in the design. The role of a key in a bullet journal is to define symbols for different items in the journal. In this case, I'm starting from the bottom up. I had already penciled in everything, and I have a star for something important, a box for an event, a triangle for an appointment, and a little clock for a deadline. And then at the top you see I have a little dot for a task. When I complete the task, I'm going to make a cross on top of the dot. I'm going to cross it and strike it if it's cancelled, and I'm going to add a little greater than sign if the task is rescheduled. You can customize your key the way you want, but basically the 4 items at the top of my key are kind of the essentials for bullet journaling. And if you are not familiar with the system itself and you would like to know more about it, you can let me know, and I can definitely link some resources for you, but I can also just make another video in which I explain it in more detail. I kept decorating my page, and here I am creating a mask with the On My List stencil and some more repositionable packaging labels so that I can do some masked stamping. The ink that I'm using is Lime Ricky again, and the images that I am stamping are from the Daily Plan stamp set and the Bullet Journal Basics stamp set. And like on all other pages, I used a Stabilo green fine liner to create a shadow on the title. The next page I'm going to set up is my goals and milestones page. Here is where I want to write down the larger objectives or broader objectives if you want, and then I can break them down into smaller tasks month by month, and this will help me achieve these goals in an easier and more structured way. At the bottom, I also like to track milestones because I will know whether I have achieved those goals or if those goals have brought some nice results. Obviously, this is just some inspiration, and you can add however much you want to your bullet journal. Some people track their expenses. I have stopped doing that because I do it on an Excel sheet, basically. I find it a little bit easier for me. I also didn't want to have a ton of pages on my bullet journal set up because the more things you start tracking, the more you have to keep tracking, and it can make the whole process quite overwhelming. So I decided to keep it quite simple. Coming back to the page, I decorated it with a banner stamp from the Daily Plan stamp set, and I also added some lines with a light gray marker in the milestone section. A quick close-up at this page, and then we can move on and work on the future log. This is basically your yearly calendar, and here is where you can log all upcoming events or tasks or appointments. I like to work on a 1-page 3 months layout because I feel this gives me enough space to be able to log all my events and tasks. And I am going to work with a horizontal layout for this bullet journal setup. I'm using a couple of different stencils by Catherine Puller Designs to create each box for each month. I'm using the On My List and the Calendar and Boxes stencil to create this square and the square with the rounded rectangle. There is where I will have the actual calendar with the days of the month. And then I am creating a box around it with the larger stencil in the On My List stencil, and there is where I can actually write down the events and appointments. I filled each page with 3 boxes, and I have 4 pages in total because I have the 12 months in the year. And by the way, the pens that I'm using are fine liners by Spectrum Noir, and I'm using different sizes for different elements to create a little bit of a visual hierarchy, I guess, and have a little bit of a more orderly look. I then decided to add a little bit of a fun touch and to create some banners where I will eventually stamp the names of the months. I'm using the calendar and boxes stencil by Catherine Puller Designs, and I'm blending aquatine ink through a finger dauber because that's going to give me a little bit more precision. I'm also going to outline the banner with a black fine liner, again by Spectrum Noir, so that I have a little bit of a more defined look, and then I can go ahead and stamp the months. The stamp set that I'm using is the Months and Doodads stamp set by Catherine Puller Designs. This includes the months in the year in different styles, and I'm stamping them again with black ink over the banners. I also outlined each month with a white gel pen so that it would pop against the ink blended background. And then I moved on and I started working on my calendar boxes. I decided that I wanted the top of that rounded corner square to actually have a sharp angle, so I fixed that with a fine liner and my T-square ruler, and then I filled in those areas with a black brush marker. This is also by Spectrum Noir, and these are sold in a pack together. I used a white gel pen to write the first letter of each day of the week on those black stripes, and then I went ahead and actually filled in the calendars. The way I'm doing it is I'm having the phone near me and I'm checking basically at the end of each week whether I am at the right point so that I'm sure that I don't make mistakes, and if I make them, that I don't drag them around, because the last thing you want to do is to fill in your entire future log and figure out that there is something wrong in your dates. I know that some people find this process quite tedious, but I have to admit that I find it really soothing instead, so having this repetitive action that you perform is something that I find calming. I added the usual drop shadow to the title using a Stabilo green fine liner. I finished my calendar and I'm going to skip that, but I just want to show you how I am going to actually use the future log. So for example, on the 8th of each month I have an event, and I'm going to first mark the date in the calendar with a marker. I'm using a very inexpensive Crayola marker to do so, and then I'm going to write it in the white area, and I am repeating the date, so I'm going to write the number 8, and next to it I'm going to write what the actual event is. Here is a brief flip through of my future log and a close-up picture too. And by the way, make sure to check the blog post that will be linked in the description box down below, because there I will have all this information written down in a nice and neat way. The next page is a space for ideas. This can be ideas for content on my videos, for content on my blog, cards, or anything else really. It's not just about card making, right? But anyway, I'm going to just have the title, a couple of these speech bubbles that I blended with aquatine ink and finger dauber again, and nothing more on the page because I wanted it to have enough space for me to be able to actually write down the ideas, and maybe, then they will turn into plans as the months go by. I guess there is no planner without a to-do list, so that's what goes on my next page. Also in this case, I'm keeping the page pretty simple and pretty empty because if you fill them up with decorations, they do look very nice, and I love seeing some bullet journals are pieces of art, but then I find that it gets a little bit too overwhelming if the pages are too crowded. So I have my title at the top, a little bit of a decoration. The stamp again is part of the funky alphabet set. And then at the bottom of the page, I'm going to have space for a wish list. I can always have more wish lists on my monthly pages, so I didn't feel like I needed like a full page or a full spread for my wish list on the bullet journal setup. But here is, for example, where I can write things that I need that are related to the ideas that I have or to the to-do list. to give a little bit of visual order to the page, and I have found that this is very useful, especially when you actually start filling in these pages. I am filling in every other line with a very light gray brush marker. This is by Marvi Yukida, and I'm doing that both on the wish list area and on the to-do area. And this basically finished my bullet journal setup. At this point, I can go ahead and fill in the index page, and as you can see, I'm going to write down the page number and then what's on that page. So you see I have my cheat sheet, the key, goals and milestones, my future log, and then my ideas and my to-do and wish list pages. And as I add more pages to my bullet journal, I'm going to fill in the index accordingly. And here's a quick flip through of my bullet journal, and also stay tuned for my April Plan With Me video that will be coming up in the following weeks. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it was interesting for you to see this bullet journal system by Catherine Puller Designs. I really like how it combines stamping and bullet journaling, and you will see in the next videos that I'll be sharing how all the elements in the Canvo system work together really nicely. I think you saw a great example of that, for example, in the future log of my bullet journal. But as I create more pages and I also get more acquainted with the whole system, I'm sure I will be showing you even more of the potential of this system. And that's it for today. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and to leave a comment in the comment section down below. And if you haven't already, you can subscribe to my channel for more card making, paper crafting, and bullet journaling inspiration. As always, thank you all so much for stopping by and have a great day.